Hello, and welcome everyone to the very first Portent webinar of 2013. My name is Sean, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar, which is How to SEO a Terrific and Profitable User Experience with Marianne Sweeney, who is the Senior Search Specialist here at Portent. So we would love it if you all joined in on this webinar. There are a couple of ways you can do that. One way is by asking your questions within GoToWebinar, and the other way is by tweeting your questions with the hashtag PortentU. So that's hashtag PORTENT and then the letter U. And just so you all know, in case you miss out on any of today's webinar or you want to look back on it for future reference, don't worry, because tomorrow you'll receive a follow-up email which will contain a link to this recorded webinar, a slide share link to the presentation slides, and a bit.ly link bundle which will contain all the links to the resources that Marianne will be referencing in today's webinar. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Marianne. Hey, Marianne.
Thanks, Sean. Great to be here. I'm very excited about this webinar for a number of reasons. One is because, unlike many of my colleagues, I came to SEO from an information architecture and a user experience background. I've been an information architect for about 14 years. And it could not be a better time to be talking about this because Google and Bing both are heavily emphasizing user experience as the ultimate in relevance determination. So let's get into it and find out what we're going to talk about and get started. Okay. Evidently only Sean can do this. All right. This is the hashtag, so if you have questions while I'm speaking, I'm used to conferences where people can raise their hands. But in this instance, please send a hashtag or use the window. And please don't feel that you need to wait until the end. I really hate that when you have to wait. You have a question about a specific thing, but you can't ask it right away. Well, here you can, and we will stop and answer if that is called for. This is the bit.ly link for some of the resources I'm going to mention here, along with others that will help you continue on with the good UX fight. So what we're going to cover today is a little bit about information retrieval and the foundation that the search engines are using. This is their Achilles heel. We're then going to talk about how they optimize, how they determine relevance, and what this has created in terms of user dependency. We're going to look at how the search engines have retaliated in our attempts to exert any influence or control over search engine ranking. And then we're going to talk about the user experience of SEO and how we can regain control over our sites and the B's of SEO that you'll carry forward to create an optimal user experience. So let's get started. Jaron Lanier is a long-time computer scientist. He's one of the pioneers in virtual reality and an amazing thinker. He has written a book called You Are Not a Gadget. And what I like about this is it really is a call to action, somewhat as this presentation is, for us as thought processing bipeds to assume control over the machines that service us as well they should. And the two concepts that I felt really called this out were digital Maoism, which made me automatically think of Panda. That the Panda update basically says we are going to use computational math to determine what a good experience is. But in actuality, it's focused on an abstraction that it's applying to everybody, not on real people. And then the computationalism, which is Penguin. And again, that the computer process is basically treating us as sub-processes, basically telling us what we must do. And I don't think that's right, and I think that we should fight back. In order to do that, what I found most helpful was to understand how search engines work. And this is the locked-in nature, that all search engines from the 50s basically go to a set of documents. They break those documents down, the text down, into individual words. They assign surrogates to those words, and they store those surrogates in a particular manner that will allow retrieval based on a group representation. So when you go to a search engine and you type in user and experience, the search engine goes to this index and it pulls out all of the documents that have user on it. And it pulls out all of the documents that have experience and dumps them in a big pile. It then organizes them into a presentation of what it thinks might be most relevant. As you can see, the problem is we don't search that way. So individuals or user experience with search is to sort of start there, barf up a bunch of terms into the search engine and use the search engine for context. So we're very contextual and free form. The search engines are very literal, directed, and rigid. We are random and focused. The search engines are one way and sequential and constrained. But more importantly, we determine relevance in an emotional and environmental way. We're influenced by how we're feeling and where we are. And for us, good means pleasing, honest, truthful, integrity. For a search engine, good fulfills a set of programming instructions. And this was never more clear than an instance a few years ago where a young woman looked for eyeglass frames online and she selected some. They came and they were obviously fake. She selected the number 3 result. To her, that was a relevant and good result. She returned to the frames, and therein started a series of cyber stalking events that made the New York Times. The problem here is to Google, the social media attention to the vendor who was stalking and terrorizing her was an indication of relevance, because the search engine couldn't understand that most of the social mentions were negative and talking about what a bad guy this guy was. So again, we cannot rely on the search engine to know completely as we know. So how do we optimize? Well, we understand how the search engine starts, and they start with the text on the page. They look at how often the term is mentioned. They look at where it is mentioned. They look at the document in relation to other documents that have the same term. To sum up, the document that contains more of the term scores higher. Longer documents are discounted because they could be just, boring things, or there could be a tightly focused 2-paragraph. And rare terms are weighted higher. So what did Google do that made a difference? What did Google do that got them to where they are now? Well, the first thing is they looked at search as a user experience. And they did that initially with the PageRank algorithm, which was, we think, is just, a link as a vote. And in actuality, it's based on the academic citation model. So it's not just like an independent vote. It is a vote for context. In academia, when you are writing on a subject, you find papers that are about your subject, and when you reference them or cite them, you do so in an effort to support what you yourself are saying. So this was carried through to PageRank, along with some other computational sophistication, and it worked for about 10 minutes. The problem is twofold. One is only people who could create links could vote for relevance. And two, it did not incorporate into that element of the number of links the financial incentive. In academics, you don't pay somebody to cite your work. But as we know, in PageRank, that was an early problem. The solution came in the form of the Hilltop algorithm, which basically said that the quality of the links was more important than the quantity. This is now like 2003, 2004. It also introduced the concept of authority, that there were some pages that were more authoritative than others. And as a result, links from these pages would be worth more. This was the initiation of the segmentation of the web into topic areas, so that you didn't just have this mass of pages and this mass of authority, that there was that pages were authoritative in the context of something else, and that we anyway. So to compensate or to complement this, the search engines came up with what's known as the topic-sensitive PageRank, and it's the same concept of allowing context and category to influence how pages are deemed to be relevant. It also introduced the concept of context within the document, the use of the term in context within a document. And this was complemented by the hypertext-induced topic selection algorithm, which applied an ontology to the subset of the web and then expanded that to the web writ large. It is rumored that the ontology or the organizing scheme is based on the open source directory or DMOZ. So now we have context as an issue, as an influence, and as an indicator of relevance. And Google seems to be doing really well. They become the dominant search engine. They are to this day processing about 3 billion searches a day. And what did this do for us? Did it enhance our lives? In actuality, not. What's been found by the Pew Internet Trust is that as recent as 2010, 56% of us construct poor queries. 55% of us regularly select irrelevant results. 38% of us are overwhelmed by the amount of information that is found on a results page, and who can blame them looking at this? And 34% found that critical information was missing from their results. So how did the search engines retaliate to our efforts to govern where our sites appear in search results? Well, they sent the Panda update on us in 2010. It's rumored to have been in response, 2011. It's rumored to have been in response to the JCPenney and the Overstock.co instances that were reported in the New York Times. To sum up, I mean, there's no real revelation as to what exactly Panda is. The best that we can get from Google is that it is focused on 3 key user experience concepts. Click through. Do they select your result from the search results that they have presented to them? Bounce rate. Do they do something when they get to the page that they have selected? Is there something for them to do? Is there any indication that they are engaging with the content there? And conversion. It's very difficult to determine exactly what the search engine means by this. I believe that it means, did you convert their information need? Does the user indicate that you have solved their issue by either moving on to another subject, or do they go back to the search results, select another result, or iterate their search results? Panda didn't just stop in 2011, and in point of fact, Google has been iterating it regularly since then. The next few slides are going to be just a tip of the iceberg as to how many changes that Google has made to Panda. These represent about 10% of the updates over the last year. But one of the things that you will notice here, perhaps not in this display, but when you download the presentation, the number of enhancements that deal with content freshness, with high quality sites, updating their algorithm on how to determine what a high quality site is. They do not share with us what this criteria is. Again, term proximity scoring, more enhancements to site freshness, site quality. As if that wasn't enough, we then were hit with the Penguin update, which was an attempt to get rid of or put a stake in the heart of what is a vampire to Google, and that is any manipulation of search results through links. The Penguin basics are basically that they have created an algorithm that establishes a threshold for what they consider to be link spam. If you exceed that threshold, your site is then sent to a human evaluator who, more often than not, always agrees with the computational mathematics, and your site is taken out of the index or seriously demoted. You do receive a notification that your site is under a Penguin penalty, and then you must beg to be re-included into the index by attending to your link profile and resubmitting yourself to Google, who will look at your link profile and say, nope, still spammy, but they won't tell you what is spammy. They just keep rejecting you until you once again hit the threshold and they let you back in. Does anyone else have a problem with this? So once you are back in the index, then you are fine and good to go, and you may or may not be able to engage your customers once again, although it does represent a significant loss of income to many sites. The targets that Google has are anchor text that they feel is over-optimized. So if you pull a link profile and you see that you have the same anchor text spanning thousands of links, they will assume that those links are bad. They will assume that links from the same sites that share the same niche, domain host or domain owner, are spammy. And then they look at the standard signals on the page, if there's any stuffed title or meta description, hidden text, or unrelated links. So what are we going to do about it? I don't know about you, but I'm going to fight. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm glad you're here. Because we're going to optimize the user experience ourselves. We don't need a search engine, computational math, or algorithms to tell us how to do it. We're people, we're users. We know how to do it. And we're going to make money as a result. The next few slides, I want to go over some of the examples of elements that impact user experience, elements that we have direct influence over, elements that influence how the search engines see our site. And the number one is interaction design. There's really no way to deal with interaction design, in a single hour-long webinar, let alone as a portion of this. All of this is meant as an opportunity to inspire you to dig deeper, and the links and the resources in the link bundle will give you an opportunity to do just that. The number one issue with interaction design is, for me, orientation. As we noted before, our users are coming from a very confusing set of search results, and it may take them a while to focus. And the questions that we all ask, I think, when we hit a website is, where am I? What is here? And where do I want to go next? One of the most consistent issues that I find with client sites is attempting to do too much with the home page. So what you get is another blinding page of many links, and there's stuff on the right, and there's stuff on the left, and there's stuff at the top, and there's stuff at the bottom. And I'm just really confused. I'm going to go back to the search engine and see if I can get a little more specific about what I need to find here. USA.gov, which is a website that lists resources for the entire federal government, so you can imagine that there's a lot of iceberg under this tip, does a great job of presenting a high-level overview and encouraging me with great link text that has a strong scent that's going to lead me to want to click on them. It presents me with opportunities to control the content myself with the hero area there that allows me to advance and drill down into some of the top stories that they're giving me. It provides me with some social incentive with the popular topics. But a nice, clean design. It sort of lets me get settled and oriented and decide where I want to go next. Another issue that I find with the search engines is, with the websites, is site search. And site search is an incredible killer. It can be a great asset. It can also be a real deterrent. My big issue as a designer, interaction designer, and as a customer is I don't like being blamed for the fact that your search engine doesn't work. And so when I go to a site and it tells me there are no results found, you need to go back and try my search again, you know what? I don't really want to try my search again. Google always finds what I'm looking for. And just to be clear, when people talk about how they want the Google experience, it means that they want to find that they're looking for. They don't necessarily want the Google product on your site, as that can have some issues too. Those of you that consider using the free version of the Google search engine, I strongly recommend that you find a way to code it so it does not present your competitors' ads on your site search results. It's important to give your customers a starting point. It's easy to do. You can look at your site search logs. These are available through your site search queries. These are available through Google Analytics, or if you have an independent product running on your site, you can find what searches people are doing that are producing 0 results. You can also find those in your server logs, I think. From there, you can code or plant a result, which is called a best bet. You know the content on your site. That would give the customer a starting point to start exploring and finding what they're looking for. The other thing that I like to encourage as an interaction designer is finding opportunities to let customers play with their food. This is a screen capture of the Dell site, and as you can see, it gives me off the bat a great opportunity to refine my content experience on the site by making selections that will get me started if, in point of fact, I am looking for a computer. Remember back when we were talking about Panda, bounce rate, bounce rate, bounce rate. For those of you that don't know what it is, bounce rate is whether or not the customer takes any action on the page. So the more opportunity that you give for the customer to click, to engage, to select, to refine, will lower the bounce rate for this page and increase its perception of relevance. The other opportunities that we have are user assistance. Apple does a great job of that by providing, much like Google does with Search Suggest. When I type iPad in, Apple has already given me a lot of starting points. It doesn't present me with a list of 200 or 300 search results from their site. It gives me a quick links or a best bets list that will get me started exploring and consuming the content. Structure, as we mentioned before, is critically important to the perception of relevance. It has been for quite some time an early influence. The search engines look at structure and they say distance reflects relevance. And the way that I describe this to my clients is something that you put over the sink in your kitchen is probably a little more relevant to you than something that's in the attic over your garage. So URL depth, the further from the home page, means that the search engine will see that page as being less relevant. I recommend to my clients a site structure that is no more than 3 levels deep. Home page level 1, navigation pages level 2, and everyone else crowded into level 3. The other distance indicator is called click distance. And basically that says the number of clicks that a page is from an authority resource are an indicator of relevance. So you want to create authority pages or authority resources on your site and then make sure that you are linking to them from other pages on the site and also that you are linking out to them, out to these other pages. Page structure is now a factor. Google in the Panda update and the patents that have been made available have created zones of relevance on a page. And Bing also has done this, where they basically say that there are areas of the page that are more important to the user and consequently a higher indicator of relevance. The pointy-headed concept that governs this is called the fish-eyed view. It basically says from user studies that when people hit a page, they tend to focus at the center and that their focus becomes more and more diffused from that point. URLs are also an indicator of relevance. Google likes to find keyword phrases, as do the other search engines, in the URL. However, it does have to map to what is on the page. Remember that they can now determine the context relationship between the URL and the page content. So the tools that we would use here would be a flat structure within your content management system or your site structure. We want to use analytics to find out where people are going, where our authorities, develop more and make sure they are well linked, and we want to ensure that cross-linking happens on our site. Navigation is an issue, and it's an issue because the users lose focus when they hit the site, and they tend to suffer navigational blindness. And the way I describe this to my clients is if you had to cook a meal in a different kitchen every meal over a month, you would probably just stop looking for the carrot peeler and bring your own. And that's the issue that we have here. They're not going to be there that long. They're used to the search crack of being told exactly where to go. And as we mentioned, they have a fisheye view of the page. So help them stay grounded without having to use the back button. Don't be too clever with your navigation labeling. Use clear, common sense labels. Don't give them too many choices. Try and present a clean and inviting environment, much like USA.gov. And more importantly, entice them to explore. The tools that we would use here would be Google Analytics Visitor Flow, which I rely on heavily with my clients. Google Insights for Search, which is an opportunity for us to partially data mine all of the information that they collect on us. Breadcrumb navigation, which gives the customer an opportunity to see where they are in the site structure and occurs usually at the top of the page. And then an HTML sitemap. You do not have to structure this sitemap according to your site structure. You can create content groupings that enable the customer to find pages that are related but may not be right next to each other. Stuart Brand is a wonderful architect, and he wrote a great book called How Buildings Learn. And the lesson that I take from that is he recommends that you don't put sidewalks in right away, that you wait and you find out where the footprints appear in the grass around the building, because that will reveal to you where the customers are going to get into the building. And we can use this moving forward with the navigation on our sites by using visitor flow and customer behavior. So a lot has been said about content, and I don't know how much I can add other than it is critically important. And the tools that we can use here to make sure that we have content that is relevant, that is related, is to, one, start with what I call a core metadata, and that is 20 or 30 keyword phrases that best describe your products or your service offerings that you feel customers would use to find your products and service offerings, and then bake those both literally and conceptually into content on your site. The tools that we can use here are content analytics. Look at the top pages on your site. Look at their bounce rate. Look at the visitor flow to these pages. Where do they come from and where do they go? Perform a content audit every now and then. I just did one for a client, and I found press releases that went back to 2004. Remember the panda slide, the really eye-bleeding one that had like many bullet points of all of the changes? Go back over that and you'll find how much deals with content freshness. Nobody is interested in press releases from 2004. And so this content should either be archived or taken off the site. And then remember the relational content model of next steps, more information, guided tours, best bets. Content structure, content modeling is critical. Content strategy is very, 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 very popular now. And the way that we want to enforce our content strategy and our relational content modeling is what I talked about before. The idea of creating tools that will enhance engagement. And not only that, but will see the customer go to areas of the site that they may not find on their own. Guided tours are a great example of that. Or a produced view. We have a software client that does enterprise software. And one of the recommendations that we made is that they build a page, a navigation page for business intelligence. This is of extreme importance to the enterprise clients. And they had a number of content items about business intelligence scattered across the site. By creating a navigation page that included links to all of those pages, it provided an all-up view and an express or a quick way for the customers to find all of that content. Task drop-down lists are really great also. You'll see this a lot on Microsoft. I want to buy a product. I want to fill out a support ticket. I want to get to where I need to go right away, and thank you for providing me this list that will get me there. And then related links, as in next steps, not as in where the marketing team wanted you to go. And best bets, we've talked about that, providing an editorial result that will be the perfect content item for what you know the customer is looking for. Links, while having a tawdry reputation, are not dead yet. I always like to see links as being like Jessica Rabbit. They're not bad. They were just drawn that way by some very unscrupulous people. They are a human-mediated relationship between sites. What they can't be anymore is a one-night stand. So the idea of buying links is out. The idea of earning links is in, and not that hard. The source and the destination must share a contextual relationship. And if you can be linking out to authoritative resources, that's a very good thing in your context area. And certainly getting links by developing authority resources on your site is a good thing. You want to create a positive experience with links by directing the customer to content that they may not find themselves. And do this by building a link-based relationship model of relevance. So create a hub on your site, as I did with the business intelligence page, or create and build authority pages on your site with focused content that deals in an authoritative way with a certain subject. So what are the B's of the new SEO? You want to be focused. Be realistic about what you can place visibly for. JCPenney's was able to place #1 for bedding because they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars buying bad links that got them into trouble, and that cost them a lot of money. So while it would be nice if you are a limousine company and could rank #1 for transportation, but I would advise against that. It would be very costly, and more importantly, it's not going to deliver the kind of traffic to your site that you want, traffic that will convert. Let every page be about something and not about too many things. Focus is the key. And by focus, I mean you want to focus the user's attention, and there are a couple of ways of doing that. One is you can use what the search engines are using as a determinant of relevance, that center area of the page. Use that effectively by putting either strong contextual text there, or if you do have images or streaming media components, that you annotate those components in a way that both the user who hits them and the search engine understand what they're about. And then maximize the real estate to maximize the user focus. Don't have a lot of ads above the fold. I know that they are revenue generators, but Google, in their inimitable wisdom, says we are going to let you run ads on your site, but we are going to penalize you for having too many ads or for having them in what the searchers indicate as dominant space, and that is above the screen fold and in the upper right corner. There have been entire webinars on social, and I am just going to do a drive-by here and say that the one thing that Google has been transparent about is the connection between the Google social channels and Google organic results. I'm not quite sure how fair that is, but there you are and there you have it. So, as a business owner, as an individual, I strongly recommend that you have a Google Plus account, that you invite a bunch of people into your circles, regardless of whether you care about them or want to follow them or not, because Google, again, associates the contextual relevance of your social circles, your posts, to the placement of pages on your business site in Google search results. The other important thing to remember in terms of social are the local accounts or the business accounts, and that you ensure that the name, address, and phone number that appears on your website appears in the exact same manner, down to parens around the area code or using hyphens to separate the numbers for the phone number. It's that literal. Other social channels are also important. Not all social channels are equal. Consequently, I myself determine, based on the channel, if there is an intrinsic value to the channel, to my followers on the channel, before I promote something or send out a tweet or schedule an update. I've never been a big fan of cross-channel updates where it's like it's on Twitter, it's on Facebook, it's on LinkedIn, and all of that. And I think that the search engines also are looking at social sharing and the type of information being shared between channels. You also want to be connected, and we've talked a little bit about this. You want to be connected to related content both on and off your site. A lot of clients are unhappy about sending customers off the site to authoritative resources. I guarantee you they'll come back. Studies have shown that most people navigate with the back button. Make it easier for customers to subscribe to you. Present them with an opportunity to join an RSS feed, to receive alerts, or to follow you on other channels. Link building is out, link earning is in, and keep them engaged and on the site through some of the interaction opportunities that we've discussed and others that you might come on your own. Most importantly, be aware. The search engine accounts, the webmaster accounts, provide you with valuable information about how the search engine is viewing your site, as well as who's linking to it. Take a look at your competitive landscape. There are some free tools out there, as well as just go and look for, not yourself, your brand, but look for some of the keywords that you think people would use to find you, and see who is ranking along with you for those terms. Look at emerging authorities within the search engine results and see what they have going for them, who's linking to them, or how their content is laid out. And then look at your customer behavior. So the key takeaways that I would be deliriously happy if you came away from with this would be: search engines aren't smart. Search engines are tools. We're smart. Search engine companies have an agenda, and that agenda is not always about helping us find what we're looking for. Sometimes the agenda is about making money off of advertising. User experience was an early influencer of relevance because it's easier to find things in a structured environment. User experience is now a recent influencer of relevance because Google thinks that it cannot be corrupted. Search is a user experience. Need is an experience. Need to know is a state of being. And creating an optimal user experience is the new SEO.
Thank you, Marianne. That was definitely informative. So now don't forget, All of the resources that Marianne referenced will be available in a bit.ly link bundle, which you can find here. And remember that bit.ly link bundles are case sensitive, so you have to do capital WUDS 77. So now we're opening up for question and answers. Does anyone have any questions? Let's see.
I would tend to agree about the Seattle Times. It's very difficult with publications because oftentimes the IT department uh, controls the internal search engine, but the editorial department, the one that knows about the content and would like to program the best bets, does not have a direct connect to them. So this is really oftentimes the result of sort of siloed or balkanization with regard to the technology and the content.
All right. Now, don't forget, if you have any more questions for Marianne, you can tweet them her way at msweeney, and make sure you add the hashtag PortentU, which is PORTENT, and then the letter U. Now, just as a reminder, today's webinar, the presentation slides, and all of the links will be coming your way tomorrow in a follow-up email. So join us next month for our February webinar, which is 30 tricks for presentations that don't suck. And that's going to be hosted by Ian Lurie, who is the CEO here at Portent. Now, if you don't want to wait to sign up, you can go to the Portent website right now, or you can go to the webinar tab on the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/portent.marketing. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.